Hello, everybody, and welcome to this webinar from St. Leo CTLE. My name is Candace Nelson. I am a teaching and learning specialist here at St. Leo. And today I'm going to present to you prompt writing for faculty. So we all have the generative AI tools that we use. It's been all the buzz for sure. But how we communicate with those tools really affects the outputs that we get. And sometimes, if we're not using the correct prompts, we might be actually making more work for ourselves than we need to. So I want to give you some of the tips and tricks I've learned along the way. Goodness knows I've made plenty of mistakes in that area. So I'm going to give you my lessons learned so you don't have to make the same mistakes that I did. So let's go ahead and get started. So what you put in is what you get out. And there's this great programming concept where it's garbage in and garbage out. So if you are just kind of randomly putting something into the AI tool, you're going to get something random back. So these are the two kind of general rules that I like to follow in my head when I'm working with artificial intelligence. And it's right with the end in mind. It's a lot like how we design learning experiences for our students in the classroom. We have an end goal in mind and then we design how we get there. So write your prompt with that end in mind. What do you want at the end of it? So start with your desired outcome clearly defined before you start actually writing it. What do you want to get from the AI tool? Know what you want. Be very specific about what it is. If you're using it for ideating, you might, break this rule. Not all rules are written in stone. So if you're using it to ideate, then you may not have an end in mind. But you should have something loosely there. So some elements of an effective prompt. So there's five of them total, and there's different prompting strategies. We have CTL 122, which is effective prompt writing, ethical prompt writing. I would highly suggest taking it if you want to learn more about how to talk to AI. There's some really neat frameworks in there that are very easy to follow. And once you internalize those, man, it goes really fast and your products with AI will be probably more of what you're looking for. But for now, let me go over kind of the five little simple tips for it. So start with your goal, like we talked about. What do you want from the AI? Then give it clear instructions, step by step. So I actually explained this to my class yesterday in the AI Unlocked class that you want to give the AI very direct instructions. Think about it like if you've ever done that elementary school lesson where the teacher asks the students, how do you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? And the first thing they do is say, you put the peanut butter on the bread. And so the teacher grabs the, whole thing of bread and then just plops the jar of peanut butter on there. Well, she did what you asked, right? But you have to give clear step-by-step instructions. First, get the loaf off the counter, untwist the twist tie, open the bag. So you want to be maybe not that detailed with the AI, but you want to break it down into steps. You don't want to assume what it knows, because if you assume what it knows, before you know it, it's going to give you the bread and the peanut butter, but it's not connecting them in the way that you wanted. It's not making a sandwich. Okay. So provide clear step-by-step guidance on exactly what you want. I like to do this by actually numbering them, and I'll show you later. So step three, format requirements, specify how you want the output structured. Do you want it in bullet points? Do you want it with headers, no headers? Do you want it in narrative format? How many words do you want? You may not have a specific format, and that's fine. But ask it. Most AI tools, like even Copilot that you have access to, can help create documents. It can do PowerPoints. It can give you an outline. Be very specific about what you want from it. Four, we've got constraints and verification. So set boundaries. Tell it what you don't want. So just like when we're teaching, we give examples, but we also give a non-example so that they can see the goal and then the where not to be, right? So the AI needs that kind of guidance too. So tell it what not to do, and then maybe ways to check its work. So sometimes I ask it when it produces its output, I'll tell it to give me the reasons why this output is the best one. So if I ask it to give me like 5 ideas for an active learning lesson, um, I'm not going to just ask for 5 ideas. I'm going to say, give me the strengths and weaknesses of each of these activities. And it's going to give me some strengths and weaknesses that I can balance out and pick whichever one's going to be best for my classroom. And then 5, background and context. AI does not understand your life, your context, your restraints, what your classroom looks like, how your students are, what their personalities are, and how, its lesson might work for you or whatever. It doesn't have contextual awareness, so we have to provide it. So I might say, I need you to play the role of a professor who's teaching freshman students in biology. Here is some information about what I noticed, like make sure that we emphasize certain vocabulary the students are struggling with, advanced vocabulary terms, so let's add in some literacy elements. That kind of context helps it build something that's a little bit better for you. So you don't have to go back in later and redraft everything and be frustrated because the AI didn't give you exactly what you wanted. So try to be very clear. And you can do this all in one prompt, but you can also do it conversationally and iteratively. So if it doesn't give you exactly what you want the first time, you can reprompt it. The idea of creating the perfect prompt, that whole one-shot prompting, is kind of a pie in the sky dream. Like, yes, of course, you can get a really great output the first time, but it is very, 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 very rare that you're going to get something perfect the first time. I would say it's never perfect and you're going to have to edit anyway, but you want to try to get as close as you can through these kind of things. Give it a goal, instructions, give it the exact format you want, tell it, what you don't want it to do, and give it some context. So here are some other things to help you out. So some other tips for prompting: give it a role. So when you give AI a role to play, like instructional designer or professor or content writer, it starts curating its output from that lens. So it functions on this massive, massive data set. And if you're not giving it a role, it's pulling from everything. But if you tell it you are an instructional designer, it's going to pull from a much smaller part of its data set because now it knows, okay, I need to be thinking like an instructional designer. I need to think Addie, Sam. I need to look at adult learning theory. It understands where to go. So have it function from that point. Provide it some examples. So if you want it to write in a certain style, my husband does this sometimes as a writer. He'll give it kind of samples of writing that he wants. Say, I want you to write it in this style, and it can mimic the what he wants. Now, if I want it to have like a certain format with headers and subheaders and bullet points, I'm going to give it some examples, say, follow this example when you generate it. Set your exclusions like we talked about before. Tell it exactly what you don't want. Say, don't talk about this. Come at it from this lens, not this lens. That will help you avoid any unnecessary information and you'll have less editing to do later. Adding supporting documents. So with Copilot, you can do this very easily because it has access to your OneDrive. So you can add in your docs, you can add in your Excel files or images or things to help it understand what you want. So I highly recommend that. So if you wanted to create a lesson using Copilot, you might add in your notes from that lesson as an attachment and say, create a lesson about this and give it all of the constraints and details that you want, and it's going to be able to produce something that is better for your class and for your situation because it has access to those documents. It's a lot like teaching students. Like if you got to give it all the information and give it all of the context and the examples and non-examples. So if we think about it like that, approach it like you would with a student. How do I tell this student how to complete this assignment, right? So how do I tell this AI how to complete this task or this assignment? It'll probably help you write a really good prompt. So prompt length, think quality over quantity. You don't want something that's too short, but you don't want something that's too long. The more information that you give it, so for example, if you're attaching a document, if that document is really, really long, AI will overgeneralize it and miss out on information. Sometimes it'll make stuff up. The more information you have, the more likely it is to drop it. Think like, if AI was a literal robot and you gave it a whole bunch of paperwork and information, something's going to fall out of its hands. So you want you want to think about it that way. You want quality over quantity, so not too much, not too little. Lengthy prompts, like I said, aren't always better. But if you break the task up, so if you have a really lengthy prompt and you need it to be this way, if you break it up into numbered tasks, first this, then that, then this, or you need to include one, two, three, it understands that better. I don't know the science behind why right now. I could look that up for you later, but it does work a lot better when you number those tasks one by one. But again, I guess that makes sense because we as humans work really well that way too. When you give us a document with an assignment and you're like, first this, then that, we're going to understand it better than if you give us a full block of just non-formatted text. Too many steps can cause the AI to miss details, just like if you have too much information. So if you have like a pretty big thing that you're going to do with it, perhaps plan ahead with multiple prompts, like do it in segments and sections rather than in whole, like the whole thing, the whole document. Um, if your prompts are too short, they're going to lead to assumptions from the AI. It's going to try to fill in the gaps because it basically is a guess the next word, the guess the next pixel machine. It is going to give you the most statistically likely output based on your prompt. And if your prompt is super generic, your output's going to be super generic because it thinks that that's what you want. Overly long prompts, like I said, it can create confusion, it loses things, it can't keep track. So make sure that and that's getting better. You can test that out for yourself with different models, but it's something that I've noticed that it will tend to overgeneralize or lose things. Aim for clear, concise communication. So just like you would talk with a student or somebody that you're giving a task to, be clear, be concise, break it down. Um, Let me see. There was one other thing I wanted to say, so I don't want to forget. Um, I'll come back to it. All right. It's never one shot. It's a conversation. So there was this big fad at the early year, like the early year of AI, where it was like one shot prompting. Here's how to get the perfect output with one prompt. It's like I said, the pie in the sky kind of thing. It's a mythical thing that we can do, and I'm never gonna say never to anything. Nothing's 100%, but it's unlikely that you're going to get the first thing. Your first output isn't going to be perfect. Generative AI is fast. It's not magical. It runs off of very human data. It's basically math and it's going to make mistakes. So your first output, no matter how polished it looks on the surface, is most likely not perfect. So expect to refine and iterate to get better results. So prompting it more conversationally, like, hey, fix this. I don't want that. Don't forget this. Add in this. And then afterwards, taking that draft and then, adding your own flair. Read and reprompt. So analyze that output in detail. So it does have a huge tendency to overgeneralize or to speak really authoritatively about things that aren't true. Or if it has gaps in its knowledge, it's just going to make something up that sounds kind of right. It does this really quite a bit with source material. It'll sometimes not just fake sources, but it will find a real source and then say that that source said something that it didn't say or take the quote out of context. And you have to be very careful about it. So make sure that you do analyze it thoroughly. Edit it yourself. Once the document's done, once what you've done is there, go back, refine it, edit it, add your own expertise because there's no one who knows your students better than you. and you're going to know what's going to work, what's not going to work, what you need to add, what you need to change. So look at it critically. It's still, I know this sounds like a lot of, well, why would I use AI if it's going to take so much editing and redoing? But it saves a lot of time because you're not sitting there spinning your wheels on just that first idea or that first draft. It's nice to have a starting point, but with your expertise, you can go from like good to incredible real fast. Um, Draft, not final. So this is how I look at any sort of AI work. It's a starting point. It's not the finished product. Even with images, I tend to take them into another program and add, things to them, or I change their color palette. If I'm writing, I change things up. It likes to do, it can never just say, this is great. It's always like, this is great and excellent and groundbreaking, and goes on for like 10 minutes about how great something is when it's great would suffice. So changing the language to be a little more concise or to fit the tone or however it needs to be, but treating it as a draft is extremely important because that's what it is. And then afterwards you can add and refine. Let's see. So, prompting example. So, the RTF framework is the role, task, format, or there's context, action, result, and example. So, a good prompt is you are an instructional designer. So, I give it a role. We are going to create a project-based assessment for college students on active listening interviews. So, I'm giving it context here. I need 5 to 10 projects that assess the attached content. So, this is where I would put an attachment with all of the information that I want the students to know so it can create a better list of possibilities. So create a list. So there's my format with, and this is where I'm going to break down the task for it. So remember I told you that that I like to number them. So 1 is project description, 2 is student directions, 3 is course connection, and 4 is required materials. So for it to be able to do that, I need to make sure that I've in my attached document that I do have the course, any of the course information I need it to reference, and that's clearly done, so that it has that in any required materials, things like that I know ahead of time. And then I put for to help me understand the way it's thinking, to justify the choices with academic sources. So this is going to give me a way to verify that these outputs are actually good, not just the AI is making them up, that they're grounded in scientifically backed sort of strategies that I can use in my classroom. Role task format. So like I said, and then there's care. So whichever one would work. So with care, it would be like you give it the context of your room, you give it the action, you give it the result that you want. I want you to do this and an example to follow. So if I were to shift this to a care one, I might actually give it an outline, like follow this format, or here's an example of a great assessment. I want you to kind of follow this, and it would mimic that. I also noticed in my prompt, I've wrote that there's no paper writing projects. So that was my exclusion. Like, give me assessments, but please don't ask them to write a paper. That's not what I want because I want something like more active, project based. And that's really how you prompt write in a nutshell. I hope you found this very informative. And if you ever need anything, please feel free to reach out. And it was wonderful talking with you today. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving and enjoy your time. Bye.